Why am I building a boat? Especially when you consider I've already got one. The answer to that is it's a bit like a Zen thing. That you're always searching for that perfect solution, and currently the boat that I have doesn't really fit my needs. It's too big, too expensive, too time consuming. So having a look around, the Scamp actually seems to fit what I need better, and that would be something that's small, easily handled, and most of all, cheap. Scamp stands for Small Craft Advisory Magazine Project. And in that respect, it's a bit like a mirror dinghy, but for grown-ups. It has a pram bow, and it's just under 12 feet long. There's also some other great features. For example, it's got what they call a veranda, which is a hard open covering which can give shelter from rain or sun or weather. It's also got water ballast, which means that it's a very stable boat, and it's got a balanced lug rig, which means that it's easy to handle and can easily be sailed single-handed. There are two ways that you can own a Scamp. One is to buy one ready-made in fiberglass. The retail cost for this comes in at around about $20,000, and that's not including the shipping that would have to be to bring it over to the UK. That's way out of my reach. And the only other way is to build one yourself. So that's what I'm doing. Quite annoyingly, the plans say that you have to build the centreboard first, which is fine, except I want to get on with actually building the boat. But I suppose I better do what the plans say. One other thing. I've made up the first two parts of the centreboard. That's the blanks here that are 9mm thick using the 9mm plywood. The problem is that before I can start shaping them, they need to be 16mm thick. So the plan was to get these bits of wood that I've ripped down on my table saw and stick them on. These are 7mm thick, so 9 and 7 also makes 16 that I would need, and I was going to glue them on to the current blanks, something like that, and then that would give me the 16mm that I need. So when the two are joined together, that's 32mm all in all. Unfortunately, I don't know if you can see this if you come down, that doesn't really make for a flat enough surface, and I don't have a thickness planer. So I think I'm going to go with Christine de Marchant's way and use some of the 6mm plywood, which will make it a millimetre or so too thin, but then make it up with a bit of fiberglass in between them. I'm going to have to do it. I've been asked to give a little demonstration of how my scarfing jig works, which is what I used to get the angle on the sensor board. And well, here it is. It's something that literally I kind of threw together and it designed and grew as it went. So basically what it is we've got two rails here, and we've got the router which has got a 1/4 inch square bit on it, and that sits on there. Obviously the bit goes down further, and then it just the edges on the side to stop the router blade from digging into the rails. And then to get the angle, I've got two bits of wood, one here and one here, and the idea is that you put the jig on the piece of work, and then the bottom lip here just marries up with the edge of the piece of work, and then you turn the router on and then run it from the back towards you on the right hand rail, and then you move the whole jig over just a fraction and then run it down. And I have to say it was working pretty well actually. So yeah, that was a good sort of half hour to an hour building this. It is a little bit rough and ready. I'm not expecting it to last very long, but when it comes to time to replace it, I will build something very similar, I think. The only problem I find really is that the depths of the rails, the whole thing really needs to be about half the height that it is in order to get a bit more adjustment on the router, because what you do is you adjust the size of the cut with the depth of your router blade, and even with it on its maximum depth, I can only really get a scarf of sort of like 3 or 4 inches, which is probably just about enough. But I think that those rails could just do with being a little bit thinner. So, yeah, that's it. If that's helpful at all, then let me know. To melt some lead. Why do we need to do this? Well, the plans call for the centerboard, which is essentially the keel of the boat, retractable keel if you like, to have about 8 kilograms of lead in it, which will help counteract its buoyancy, which means that when you release the lines, the keel will swing down and not need to be pulled down with some kind of mechanical effort instead. So I got hold of some lead. It wasn't easy to find. In the end, I ended up going to a lady who restores stained glass windows, and she had some that she could sell me. It cost me £10, or around about £12 in US dollars. And we need to put that into a solid block. The plans do say that they don't recommend this technique, but as far as I can see, everybody does it. So here we go. Got my setup. I've got spirit level to make sure that the tin is level. I've got my cup of tea, face mask, 8 kilograms of lead, and I've got a blowtorch and a camping cooker. And as you can see, I've already done a little test of this just to see how the lead melts, and it seems to work okay. Test. take anywhere near as long as I thought it would. I was expecting it to be sort of several hours to melt, and despite the fact that it's really cold here in England today, it actually took just over half an hour to melt the 8 kilograms of lead. Now it's just being left to cool. Hopefully I've leveled off the container so it will be nice and even top and bottom, but we shall have to see once it happens. I'll let you know how long it takes to cool down. Okay, so the lead's been cooling for a few hours. Let's take a look and see what we've produced, shall we? Now we seem to have a pan full of lead, and it is quite heavy. Let's see if we can get it out of that tray. And that is one heavy lump of lead. Now we've got our lead ballast melted and shaped into the size that we want it. You can see that the idea is that that's going to sit inside the two halves of the centerboard. So our next task, which we'll be doing next week, will be routing a cavity on the inside of the centerboard in roughly that position. That will take the lump of lead that we've just created, and then we can stick the two bits together and get this finished. If you've enjoyed watching this first instalment of me building my Scamp, I know that there are plenty of other enthusiasts around the world, so if you fancy joining me for other episodes, then I'd love to have you along. Also, if you fancy, click the subscribe button and let's see if I can build the channel up a little bit. See you next week.